Hello and welcome back to Live at PALS. In today's video, we're going to go through a complete HiSET social studies practice test. I'm going to try to stick to the time allotted for the actual test. So here we can see there are 25 questions, and we're going to try to keep this video down to 35 minutes. To give you some tips here about how to take the test and how to move, but we're going to skip all that and jump right into it. So the first question set, we're provided a graph. Whenever taking any of these tests, the first thing I would do is read the text at the top, look through our date range or information that is provided, and here we can see that we have most populous cities from 1800 to 2000 in order from the most populous to the 10th most populous. So ascending order for most populous cities. We've got a bunch of cities. This is going to require a couple sets of factual based knowledge. So if we're looking here at the 1800s, we're going to know that this is freshly after the Revolution. Moving into the 1850 to 1900s, we're going to have to know about some other historical events, westward expansion of the U.S. and the Industrial Revolution. Moving into the 1950 column, we should know that this is the boom right after World War II, and 2000 is pretty modern. The country has fully expanded by 1900, just about. So, first question, in 1850, how many of the 10 most populous cities were located in states that were part of the original 13 colonies? This would require us to know something about those colonies. Go ahead and pause the video if you want, look through, and try to count how many were in those 13 colonies. So if you've counted and you know your history enough, we'd know that a couple of these were not. So 1850 and 1850, we would have not Missouri, that would be part of the Louisiana Purchase. Cincinnati, Ohio as well, and New Orleans. So we would have 7 that were originally from the 13 colonies. Looking at number 2, so this question is pretty much a geography question. They're going to make sure that we know the regions of the U.S. So in which of the following time periods was population growth in the South and West most evident? So we're going to look for the South and the West. Where do we see the most southern and western states? And really, there's not a whole lot of southern and western states in this area. We only have a single western, what we'd call midwestern, and over here it's pretty much the same. So it's not until 2000 that we begin to see a lot of southern and western states. So 1950 to 2000 would be our correct answer. Which of the following 2 statements, if either, is supported by the information on the table, in the table? So this is one of those tricky questions because we have 1, 2, both 1 and 2, or neither 1 and 2. So what we're going to look for here is this information supported by this? This table tells us primarily most populous in order and year and place. That's it. We can deduce through our geographical knowledge where, but that's all we have for information. So let's see about 1. There were fewer people living in the Northeast in 2000 than in 1980. That's going to be challenging because we don't have any numbers for how many people. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there were definitely more people in the Northeast in 2000 than in 1800 because our population has grown a lot. That's an unlikely answer. 2, the list of the 10 most populous cities in 2050 will be the same as the 2000 list. We have no way of knowing that. And we can guess that since there was a big change throughout this, that's probably not true. So I would go ahead and say neither of those are correct. We don't have information to support those statements. Moving on, we've got a few more. So again, anytime after I read the question, anytime you'd like to try to go ahead and do these yourself, pause the video. I'll try to be more alert about that. Go ahead and try to figure it out if you can and see if you're right after. So which of the following occurrences most likely explains why Detroit appears in the list of the most populous U.S. cities in 1950? This requires us to have some knowledge about the history. If we do have that knowledge, we should be able to figure it out. So we don't really need to go back and look at that table if we have the right knowledge. In fact, the table doesn't tell us anything about the potential reason why. As we stated, it just tells us most populous, in ascending order, years and places. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out which of these, A through D, would be the most likely explanation. Okay, so let's go through the answers. I hope you had a chance to figure it out. The growth in trade with Canada. That's a possibility, but we don't have any evidence to support that. B, the completion of the Erie Canal. Again, nothing to support that. The growth of the automobile industry. So, if we've done our history, we know that after the Second World War in the 1950s, we had a huge industrial boom, and the automobile was the biggest American product per se. So that seems highly likely. D, the end of a severe drought in the Midwest. There was an end of a severe drought, but that's not going to affect Detroit, a big city, because it's an urban environment. So C would be the best answer. 5, going back there, looking at historical events to explain stuff. So which of these historical events best explains why San Francisco was part of the list in 1900? This would be related to westward expansion and the Industrial Revolution. Those two things are highly interconnected. Go ahead and pause and see if you can figure it out. Okay, so let's go through one by one and see which would make sense. A, the end of the Civil War. That's a little bit late for that, right? The 1860s, it's been 40 years, that doesn't make much sense. B, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. That makes a lot of sense, since it would go from around the east all the way to San Francisco. The Transcontinental Railroad, that's a pretty good winner right there. The beginning of the Pony Express service. The Pony Express would have ridden out there, but it's a bit too early for that date. And D, the development of gas-powered automobiles. This could be a possible answer that it does make sense, but the movement of peoples from the Transcontinental Railroad before, I can't really remember exactly. I think the Model T Ford is like 1890 something. Anyway, it just makes much more sense that the railroad at this time would bring people than automobiles. So B is the best answer. All right, looking at number 6. It says, which conclusion can be drawn from the information on this table? So in this case, we are going to come up with an idea we think based on that information. So what could we prove with this? What's supported? Go ahead and read the answers. Pause the video if you'd like. And I'm going to go back to the table so you can pause to see if you can find any information. I hope that gave you enough time to look. And go ahead, pause the video and come up with your idea. What do you think makes the most sense? And we'll go through it together. And so we have the conclusion that Texas was the most populous state in 2000. New York City will continue to see a steady rise in population. C, from 1800 to 2000, the majority of the 10 most populous U.S. cities have shifted from states in the Northeast to states in the West. That's something we could count. Let's go back and have a count. So we're looking for the majority. More than half in 2000 should be from West and South. So we have West, South, West, West, South, and South. So we have 6 out of 10. That is true. So, I mean, we could look at the next question to be sure, the next answer to be sure, but we have just deduced that this is true. Looking at D, it says from 1800 to 2000, the majority of the 10 most populous cities have shifted from states in the South and West to the North and East. That's the opposite meaning. We just proved that one wrong, so C would be correct. Moving on to number 7, which region has the fewest cities listed in this table? If this is geography knowledge, I'd say this is common knowledge for us who are born and raised in America. We know these regions: the Northwest, the Northeast, the Southwest, and the Southeast. Just looking through, have a look. Which region is underrepresented? And you can pause the video if you'd like, but I can see that there is very little from the Southeast. The Southeast would definitely be the one I would pick on the test. Wait a second. That was a quick judge. I didn't look carefully about the Northwest. Ooh, I might have... See, that's how you make mistakes on the test, being overconfident. Because I don't see anything from Oregon or Washington. Where does Seattle pop in? No, I stand corrected. The Northwest. Because there are almost none. So A would be the best answer. Everybody makes mistakes. So number 8, which city in this table is not part of any state? If you read that list, you don't even have to look at the table. This is kind of like a trick question to test if you understand U.S. geography at all. And Washington, D.C. is the only independent entity here. It's its own little unit. It's not part of a state. It's the capital. New York City's in New York, St. Louis, Missouri, Detroit, Michigan, etc. All right, here we've got a different type of graphic for our next question set. This is I guess we call it a campaign flyer, campaign poster. The first thing you want to do with any visual is look through it. Make sure you read all the text real quickly. We've got vote for experience, vote for progress, vote for Sylvia Flores. She's a candidate for a state senator from the 15th district. And then she's listed her credentials and policy ideas. You can go ahead and pause and read that. It's going to be pretty important. If we jump down to question number 9, I think we can keep this in the screen. It says, which of the following statements is most strongly supported by the information in the poster? If it's most strongly supported, it means some of them may be supported, but this one is going to have the most support. So, A. Go ahead and pause it and see if you can figure it out. A. Flores is a member of a union. We have some evidence of unions here. This is like, these are 2 union organizations, teachers organization, board of realtors, but she's endorsed by them. She's not doesn't give us evidence she's a member of that. Flores is strongly interested in public affairs. Well, we've got a bunch of things: completion of infrastructure programs, increasing teachers' pay, and standing by labor. These are public affairs. That's likely. Flores is an advocate for lower property taxes. I see no mention of property taxes, but I see mentions of spending. Spending raises taxes. I'm going to ask C along with A. D. Flores has received the endorsement of retiring Senator Brown. This is kind of a trick because it says she's been an aide to Senator Brown. That could be a related term that could lead us to choose that. And that could be true. We don't know. There's no evidence, though, and we're looking for supported by. So B has the most evidence to support that statement. Going on to 10. Most of the statements describing Flores can be classified as, okay, here we have some really basic skills that all people get in their high school diploma should know. Discerning, fact versus opinion, value judgments, and making predictions. So if I'm looking at this real quick, I can just rule out right away that we have no predictions. I see nothing mentioning what's going to happen in the future. D, value judgments. There could be some of that in there. But fact and opinion, so we'll keep an eye out for value judgments, but fact and opinion are very clear. A fact is something you can prove. There'll be a record, you can time it, there are numbers. You can't dispute it. It would be something that has proof, evidence. An opinion will have a term that is biased in some manner. It'll show that you could possibly think or feel differently about it. So let's just look through all this information. So she is the candidate for the 15th district. That's provable. 47-year-old realtor and activist. That's provable. We can just look at her ID card. Legislative aid to State Brown. There'll be public record. Endorsed by these people. There'd be public record of that. She supports. This is like, we can't really prove this. It's not a fact. But everything else has been fact. So most of the statements are facts, though there could be some value judgments, like, I don't really see anything that's a value judgment either. There are some opinions and things she supports. She thinks those are important, but the majority of the information in this are facts. Moving on to 11. So, more about Mrs. Flores' campaign. Which of the following activities would have contributed least to Flores' being called a civic activist? So we don't really need to look at that. Civic activist would mean someone that's making efforts at the grassroots level to help the community or state, whatever. Go ahead and pause it and see if you can think which one would be least. It's really important to read the questions carefully because least is the only way we can answer this question. Let's go through and see which ones would be considered civic activist. Her work for Parent-Teacher Association. Yep, that would be working for the community. Her service to the City Council. Yep, that would be for the community. Her efforts to raise money to remodel the City Library. Again, in service of the community. Her ownership of a real estate business. This is not civic. This is totally private enterprise. D would be the one we'll choose to be least like a civic activist. Going on to number 12. Which of the following might a voter most expect if Flores is elected? Here we have most expect, because we don't know. Like, politicians say one thing and do another, right? But, and a couple could be correct. They could be likely. Go ahead and pause and see which one of these you think we would expect. So I hope you've had a chance to look at it. Let's go through A through D as usual. A, she will probably support right-to-work laws. This requires you to have some knowledge about this because a right-to-work law would be kind of like the opposite of supporting the unions. Right-to-work law would mean that you're allowed to work at a given place and not join the union, opt out of union fees. So that's not likely because she's pretty pro-union from her policies up there. She will probably be appointed to the same Senate committees in which Senator Brown have been appointed. There's nothing to support that at all, and I think it's possible we could expect that. We'll leave it on the table. She will probably support increased state spending for public schools. This one is highly likely, right? She's talking about better pay for teachers. She's part of the teacher organization, or endorsed by the teacher organization. She's probably going to spend money on schools. But let's check the last one just in case. She would probably oppose an increase in the state gasoline tax. There's nothing in that to help us decide if she would do what she would do here. So D is off the table. Although A was off the table, although B is possible, C was definitely the best answer. Moving on, Flores apparently believes that her association with Senator Brown will be regarded as a what? Which of these things is her motive for saying that she has been, what was it, Senator Brown's aide? Yeah, the legislative aide to Senator Brown. So, do we think it's professional embarrassment? Go ahead and look through these and see which you think is best. Okay, I hope you've had a chance and you've had no problems picking this one. I think this is a pretty easy question as far as how these go. So, professional embarrassment. This is a conflicting term. It's negative. She would not advertise it if it was a negative thing. A political asset. That seems highly likely. Strong rivalry. Again, we have a conflicting term. Why would she advertise her rivalry with someone who's popular and elected? Minor aspect of her experience. Again, this is conflicting with the whole point of posting that in her campaign poster or flyer. The only one that makes sense is that it's an asset. Again, when we look through these questions, if we have to use the process of elimination, we could just see, why would you put something on your to advertise yourself. Well, it's a positive thing. And then go through the answers and see which ones are negatives. Embarrassment, negative. Rivalry, negative. Minor aspect, neutral. The only one that has a positive connotation is political asset. All right, so we've got one more visual. This time it's a set of visuals. And so this is based on economics because we see no politics here. Go ahead and pause the video, read through the introductory paragraph, and look at the data. Okay, so this is about the sophomore class of Douglas High School. They raise money through their yearly raffle. Looks like they've been getting a little greedy because as we can see over the years, they've gone from $1 to $3. Pretty big increase, guys. Getting greedy. And have the units sold. As we can see, there's a direct correlation between the price and the units being sold. I can tell right away that this is going to be related to supply and demand. So the higher the price, the less people buy it. The lower the price, the more people buy it. This is one of the 4 rules of supply and demand. When we look at the next chart, we also see a different trend. So it was going up for a while, which is their profit was going up, right? Because they were charging more for the profits were rising more than they were the decrease in purchases. So, okay, it was going good, but we had a little hiccup here in year 4 and 5, and that's going to tell us something about this whole price increase. We can also see that there's a pretty big drop, substantial drop between year 4 and 5 and how many raffle tickets were purchased. So, go ahead and pause question 14 and look through these answers. Graph 1 illustrates the principle that when a product is not a necessity, what will happen to it? Okay, I hope you had a chance to look through there, and let's just go through them one by one. Profits equal the excess of a product's value over production costs. This is a true statement. This is essentially the definition of profit. However, it's not very related to that data, right? We don't really see anything to tell us about production cost. Actually, I'm assuming production cost is almost nothing. B, price is established when demand exceeds supply. What do you think about that? Price is established when demand exceeds supply. Prices increased when demand exceeds supply, because the more you want it and the less you have, the higher the price goes. C, the higher the product's price, the lower its demand. This is one of the rules of these both. This is untrue. This is one of the rules of supply and demand, and this could be true. We can look up and see if that makes sense. So let's just look for what we're looking for. The higher the product's price, the lower its demand. That doesn't really ring true for the first. Yeah, it does. It rings true in every one. So every time the price goes up, the demand decreases. The demand is evidenced by the amount of units sold. So that's definitely true, C. And it's illustrated in that graph. D, the higher the product's price, the lower its supply. The higher its price, the lower its supply. Well, we don't have any information about supply, right? So there's not really anything that can prove this. We just have demand and units sold. We do have supply, but we don't have any indication of the relationship between its price and supply. So this is a bit of a trickier question because it has that supply and demand principle used in different ways, and it's pretty tricky to understand. So you'd have to really be comfortable with this concept from economics to be able to get this correct. But yeah, C is the statement that makes the most sense and is illustrated within that graph. That was a tough question. Okay, so moving on. 15. Which of the following generalizations is supported by the graphs? So we have a generalization and we have graphs. This time we know we're looking at both of those graphs. So go ahead and read through these, and then let's talk about it. You can pause now. And if you had a chance to look at this, then you can pause and look at this again. And let's talk about it. Okay, so profits are greatest when prices are low. Prices are lowest, profits are lowest. That does not make sense. Profits are influenced by the relationship between price and demand. We have very good evidence that this is true, right? Because there's a correlation between the price going up and demand dropping, and then profits dropping. I'm going to leave B on the table. That seems quite likely. Profits increase when the price of a product increases. Going up. This is untrue because the profits did not increase when the price increased for this period. Indeed, the higher the product's price, the lower its supply. Don't really have information to prove that on this. We don't have any information to prove where the supply is. We just have demand and price and units sold and profit. So that doesn't make sense either. Although it could be true, we don't know. So the best answer from all of these would be B. A price is established when demand exceeds supply. Wait. Sorry, wrong one. Which was our answer? C, correct? No, B. Profits are influenced by the relationship between price and demand. Because that's the only one we have actual graphic indications for. So, there's a difference in change. So, for number 15, the best answer would be B. Moving on to 16. Sorry, a couple of hiccups here. Doing this live. 16, the question says, based on the information in the graphs, again we have two we need to compare, at what ticket price would the class be most likely to earn the highest profits? This is pretty easy. I like this question. Yeah, so if I get this, I'm happy. We've got A, B, C, D. You can look at these prices. They go up in 50-cent increments. We're just looking for highest profits and the price. So highest profits were at this before they jumped down. 250 would be the best answer. C, 250. If you get an easy question like this, just be thankful. All right, what's our next text? Oh no, we have another visual. Okay, whenever you get these visuals, the first thing you want to do is read what we're talking about. It's a poster from World War I. Anytime you get these posters, you should think about who is the target audience and who's creating it. So this is made by the US government. Who do you think is the target audience? Then you want to read all of the text. You've got this I'm assuming this is Lady Liberty. She's like, yeah, come fight for liberty. The Navy needs you, exclamation point. Don't read, big, bold, American history, make it, bold, an exclamation point. So they're trying to get you to stop reading and make history. This guy's putting his hand on his shoulder like, come on, buddy, we need your help. Look at America, look at liberty, it's in peril. Got some nice ships back here. And then they tell us where it's from. In the poster, 17, sorry. In the poster, the man with the newspaper most likely represents. And so who is this guy representing? Who is he supposed to be? Newspaper reporters? Former veterans? Potential recruits? Or members of Congress? And this is pretty much drawing a conclusion on your own. There's not really any tricks we can do. We don't need to use we could use the process of elimination, but it's just a bit unwieldy here. What we do is we just think, who is this aimed at? Who are these guys representing? And who is this guy going to be? The Navy needs you. Don't read the news. He's reading the news. What does he want you to do? Join the Navy. Potential recruits would be the best answer. C. Nice. This only has 2 questions for this poster. So number 18 says, the poster was most likely designed to appeal to all of the following except a person's. So these are people's traits, things that we can appeal to. Accept. Don't miss these accepts. I've seen students miss accept or not and get questions they absolutely knew wrong because of not understanding the question. You can only answer the question correctly if you understand it and know what it wants. So which one of these things is not being appealed to in this? This is like big emotional appeal, right? America's at war, the Lusitania was sunk, oh gosh, we gotta defeat all of these evil people are against our allies in Europe, and the Great War needs to be ended for everyone to recover from all of this mess. And there's probably some other things we could see from this too. Like, look at his face. He looks like he's piqued his interest, right? In this guy, he's strong and admirable. So A, a desire for adventure. Joining the Navy, that's quite the adventure. I'm going to say that one's part of the appeal. Feelings of patriotism. Oh yeah, look at that flag. Look at this, all this patriotism jumping out at us. A sense of responsibility. Yeah, I mean, America needs you. You're responsible for it. The need for financial security. This could be a bit tricky. Like, maybe you get paid well if you go in the Navy. I doubt it in the 1900s, but maybe. But this is the least likely, so D would be the one that we cut off. All right, moving on to. Okay, here we've got some questions that don't have a visual, they don't have a passage. They're just testing our factual-based knowledge and our critical thinking skills. Okay, so 19, which statement about a candidate running for president would be the most difficult to prove or disprove? What skill set is this? We talked about this a minute ago. This is, if it's difficult to prove, it would be an opinion. If it's easy, it would be a fact. So here we have again, fact and opinion. These are the skills you can study for at home. Can I discern fact from opinion quickly? If you can save 30 seconds on this question and use them on a more tricky one. So let's just go through. Is this a fact or an opinion? A, candidate A visited all 50 states in the last year. There'll be a record of that. They go everywhere, people take photos. B, candidate A has more reasonable stance on taxes than candidate B. So if I'm taking this test, I just pick that one as the most difficult to prove because more reasonable is a judgment. It's an opinion. Whatever I think is more reasonable could be opposite from what you think is more reasonable. I'd read the other two just in case. Candidate B voted in favor of a bill. Boom, there'll be a record for that vote. Candidate B has received more campaign contributions. That's kept track of. Facts, fact. This is hard to prove. I can't prove what's reasonable to everyone. B is the correct answer. Wow, here we've got a pretty tricky geography question. I hope you have brushed up on how the Earth works and moves, because seeing these right away, we know this is geography and we better be ready to look at that date. So which of the following locations would be expected to have the most hours of sunlight on January 15? Go ahead and pause and think about it. Why? All right, so in the winter, seasons are reversed. If you're up in Massachusetts, it's pretty cold and short days, but the farther we go south, so not north, south 10, 50, the farther we go south, it's going to be more like summer. We're going to have longer daylight hours. D would be the correct answer. This kind of question you can cruise through if you're confident and decisive and you have that factual-based knowledge. 21. Which of these, okay, this is like another economics question. I'm not sure how well you go into economics. This could also just be common sense, especially if you're like 20, you didn't take this test yet, and you've been working for 2 years, and you've been working at a company. You don't know what human resources is. If you're 16 and you're trying to hack life and save 2 years, maybe you don't know about HR, but maybe you've heard about it from your dad complaining at the dinner table. That was a negative comment. Maybe your dad's happy about HR's experiences. Which of the following would be the best example of an investment in human resources? So this is a great use of human resources because investment in your employees. So which of these would be the best? Pause it and decide which one you think is correct. Okay, so we have A company provides educational programs for its employees. That's an awesome investment in human resources. Upskilling your employees, that's definitely likely. B, a company offers special discounts to some customers. Customers are not related to human resources because human resources take care of employees. C, a company buys stock in a newly formed, a person buys stock in a newly formed company. That's not related to investment in human resources. That's investment in the stock market for personal gain. That's kind of probably the trick there to see if you understand. Look, it's not an investment in the market, it's an investment in HR. So we have A is probably right, B is not right, C is not right, but D could be right. A company acquires a machine that can do the work of several people. Wow. That is going to definitely affect human resources, but in a negative way. That's going to have some people out of a job. So D is not right. The best thing for investment is A, if we're talking about human resources. 22. Which of the following people would be least, again, answer the question directly to get it right, least likely to favor a city's proposed downtown redevelopment plan? Think about what that would entail. What's going to happen if we redevelop downtown? Who could win? Who could lose? Pause the video, read the answers, and see which one you think is the best answer. All right, looking at A. Would this person benefit or would they not benefit? Because we're looking for who would not benefit. Someone who is financing a new office building in the downtown area. Financing a new office there, they will benefit from redevelopment because they'll have increased footfall. Not likely. B, a member of the city board that recommended the project. Oh, they're going to get fame. They're going to definitely benefit. C, a longtime resident of an apartment building targeted for demolition. This person is going to lose their house and get government forced compensation, potentially not too happy about what they get. They're not going to benefit. A partner in the architectural firm that would be developing the proposed plan. Well, of course, they're going to benefit. It's a huge project, prestige, and money. So C, this person would benefit the least, losing their property, and who knows what they get paid. This question is pretty much common sense, to be honest. I think most of you guys, you can think about this and answer this pretty easily. Which of the following actions for 23 would probably not be protected by the constitutional guarantee of freedom of speech and freedom of the press? Here we go. So this is the first question we've seen about pretty serious civics. We've got the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, more importantly, First Amendment, and those 5 freedoms. So we're looking at 2 of them in particular, freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Go ahead and read. Which one of these would not be protected? Okay, I hope you had a chance to pause the video and look through. Let's discuss which of these would not be protected by that First Amendment. A city newspaper columnist falsely accusing a city official of stealing funds. So something that jumps out right away, okay, the newspaper, that's the press, but falsely accusing someone, that's a crime. That's I believe that would be libel or defamation depending on a city official. It's in writing, so that would be libel. That's not protected. You can't libel or defame people. B, a senator questioning the qualifications of a presidential appointee. Sure, they have the right to question that. That's within the First Amendment, right? C, a radio commentator, raising doubts about the ability of a political candidate. Yep, you're welcome to talk about our political candidates and discuss what you think is a flaw as long as you don't defame them or slander them. D, an editorial writer criticizing the policies of a police chief. We can criticize. This is part of the function of the First Amendment, freedom of the press, so that is allowed. So the only one that's not allowed, it's not protected, is criminal use of speech. A. Last 2 questions, folks. This one we've got an Earth. So looking at it real quick, I know that we should know some things about a globe. We've got these points. I know they're going to start asking me about directions or whatever. We've got some numbers, and we've got this big bold line. What's this big bold line called? It's the equator. So, all right, good. So we know that if we have the equator and the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, which are going to surround that. That's called the tropical zone. That's the hottest place on Earth. So which point on the diagram of Earth is in the tropical zone? Boom, that's the only one. Just outside, 1 is our answer. We could answer this real fast if you're pretty good with the geography stuff. This is just basically how to read a globe. If you remember that stuff, you got this. This is almost like science, right? This kind of crosses over. Which of the following statements would be most difficult to prove or disprove? Again, our lovely little prove and disprove. So, fact versus opinion. We can prove facts. We have a record. There's some numbers. It's pretty hard to prove or disprove something that we don't have facts. Go ahead and read A through D and decide which one you think is best. Pause the video and we'll go through it. Okay, so we want the one that's most difficult. So right away, A, the United States should impose import taxes on goods from countries that do not allow access to their markets. Right away, I see the word should. I know that what I think should happen and you think should happen, or what Johnny thinks should happen and Jenny thinks should happen, may not be the same. That's an opinion right away. There could be a harder, a worse opinion. B, the United States does not impose any import taxes on European goods. There will be a trade deal or a law that's in writing. C, import taxes on goods from Latin America are lower today than they were 5 years ago. There will be economic data on that. That's in writing. D, import taxes on farm machinery are greater than those on automobiles. There will be economic data on this. That is a fact. The only opinion is A, and so that will be the statement that's most difficult to prove or disprove. So that's it for this HiSET social studies test. This test didn't really cover that many topics. It's mostly geography, some fact versus opinion. We had a little bit of the Constitution, some economics and more geography, a bit about World War I history and some economics and reading graphs and charts. Here we need to know some language related to this stuff, and we need to be able to draw conclusions about a political candidate. There's a lot of stuff we need to know. If we want to know, we should know what these things mean, or be able to guess if we're going to get these questions right. But it's politics, some civics, and then these questions were all your ability to read this table and draw conclusions. So it's really important with these graphics. Remember, know what's in it and what's not. So that's a complete test for you guys, and I hope that helped you guys work on the process of elimination or get a little more familiar with what to expect. As always, best of luck on your tests, and thanks for watching. Take care.